Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at the Curt trailer wire harness for a 2018 Chevrolet Volt. So when it comes to trailer wiring, you're probably used to seeing a 4-pole or a different connection here by the hitch. That's not always the case with other vehicles that really don't tow that often. You really don't need to have your wire hanging out. In fact, this one lives inside. So when not in use, I can simply tuck this into the storage compartments. And whenever I need to hook up to my trailer, it's no problem. I simply drape this over, and this weather stripping is going to allow for that space when you close the hatch to not pinch the wires. Just make sure that you're not on the latch, and you can simply close that down, hook up to your trailer, and you're ready to go. This 4-flat connector is going to be great for a trailer that has a 4-pin connector, and that's going to allow you to send running lights, turn signals, and brake lights to the trailer, and that's going to let the people behind you know what you're indicating, keeping you safe and legal. So when not in use, I can simply just bundle this up and tuck this kind of underneath our carpet here, and it's out of sight, out of mind, just like that. Now it is also module protected, so if you have any backfeed from electrical shorts on your trailer, it's going to still protect your vehicle. So you have that peace of mind knowing you're not going to cause any damage. Installation of the trailer wiring is pretty straightforward. You do have to remove your taillights, and you'll have to run some wires and pull some plastic up, but overall it's pretty simple, and I'm going to walk you through those steps to get it accomplished. Now before putting our wiring harness in, I like to lay it out just to kind of make sure we know where everything's going to go. Now we have our 4-pole here, and that's going to attach to our trailer, and that's where you're actually going to have it living outside. Now as far as this wire, sometimes people run it to their hitch and it does live outside the vehicle. This one in particular, we're going to have it inside the vehicle, and that way whenever you're ready to use it, you can just pull it out of the hatch, close the hatch down, and it'll be ready to go. That feeds into our module here, and this is going to keep your vehicle protected from any backfeed that might happen on the trailer. So this will keep your electronics safe. Now from here, we're going to see this black wire with a fuse holder attached, as well as the ring terminal. This is going to go to our battery for power. Moving along, we have our green wire here, and it goes into a T connector. Your green is going to go to your right turn signal, and this is going to live behind the taillight, so once we unplug it, this simply plugs back in and becomes a jumper harness. Our bundle of 4 wires here, you're going to see these are going to go to the left turn signal. And then this white wire, that's going to be our ground, and we're just going to attach that to the middle of the vehicle so it's all grounded. So now that we have it kind of laid out, let's get this install started by removing our taillights. And there's going to be 2 T15 Torx bits as well as a Phillips head right here. So we'll go ahead and remove those. So now with our 3 screws out, we're going to take the taillights out. Now sometimes they can be a little bit tricky as they have pins that kind of slide in, and they're kind of meant to hold those. So you may have to kind of wiggle this back and forth a little bit, just to kind of knock it loose. And you can also give it a little forward movement here. And with a little bit of patience and moving back and forth, we should be able to get this out. So just like that, you can see it actually slides over that, and that's where the pin is. So you're kind of trying to overcome that. There's also one down here. So that's where your friction's coming from. So be careful, but you're also gonna have to give it a little bit more force than you might think. So now once we have this out, we're gonna simply unclip here, and that way we can get our taillight out of the way. So you're gonna pull this red clip back. Now sometimes these clips can get a little, built up with some dirt and debris. So a flathead might pry this open just a little bit. Just be gentle here. So there you go. You want that red to pop open, and that's just the locking feature. You can then push this down, and that should separate. Now put your taillight in a safe place. I'm just going to put it here in the trunk, and then we'll have it ready for installation later. Now our battery is going to be under this trunk area, and we're also going to need to remove some plastic to get to where our taillights are. So first thing, I'm going to take our all-weather floor mat here and remove that and set it aside. We're then going to take this cargo cover, and this will also come out. Now here we have this liner as well. This is also going to need to come out. Now this does have some accessories, so I'm going to pull that out to make it a little bit lighter, and then we'll remove that as well. Now that I've got some of the stuff out of the way, you're going to see there's these little plastic rings that go around those studs, so you can actually rotate these counterclockwise and they'll come loose. Maybe a little tricky, but if a flathead might work well. I'm just using a trim panel removal tool, just kind of spin these around. But honestly, you can probably just pop them up as well, as they just kind of thread onto those studs. You're going to want to make sure to hold on to all your hardware, as we'll need this for reinstallation. Now there is one more of those little plastic clips here, so go ahead and remove that. And then you're going to see this little turn knob here. Just simply spin this off. Now with those plastic clips and that turn knob removed, this should come out. So now we have quite a bit more room, and we're going to continue to remove plastics here. First, I'm going to take this scuff panel off, and pretty simple here. You're going to want to just kind of lift up and out, and you're going to hear these clips pop. And work your way up the side here. And then once you kind of get to the top here, it should lift out. Now this is a little tricky here, as this is wanting to push down, and we have this battery box, so just take your time and we'll get this out. Once we get that kind of loose, we're going to go ahead and take this little center portion out, as that's going to have to come out in order to get the plastic over this. Now we can set this aside. So now we're going to take these little cargo holders here, and they're going to just simply unscrew. You're also going to see this little cargo hook has this plastic cover, and it actually comes off pretty easy. Just peel back here, and it should just come out like that. So now this should come out. Now you got to realize this stud is kind of hanging out here, and there is this hook. So I kind of work this plastic over that hook there. And then once that's kind of through there, you can start to pull this back. Now we don't have to get too crazy with this. Now we're just trying to gain access to this rubber grommet where the actual taillight plug goes through. So I have plenty of access here, so we're good on this side. We're going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other. Now on our passenger side, I gained access all the same by just prying the same way that I did on the other and removing the same clips. But as you can see, there is this factory subwoofer here, and that's going to make it a little bit more difficult to get into this grommet, but we still have access. It's just going to be a little bit tight. So now we're going to need to remove this grommet, and it is kind of in there pretty well. So using a flathead screwdriver, or I have a trim panel removal tool, I'm simply going to kind of get as far back as I can and then pry it forward and then work my way around it, and that should allow this to pop out. Might take a little bit of prying, but eventually there we go. That inner edge, once you kind of get that, the rest of it should come pretty easy. Just kind of work your way around the edge. And there we have our grommet. Go ahead and pull the grommet on the passenger side as well. And once you have that pulled through, you're then going to grab your harness and start routing some wires. So I'm going to take my green wire here, which is going to go to the passenger, and simply run this through the plastic here. And like I said, it is fairly tight here, so just be patient. And you're going to want to pull each plug in one at a time until it's living out here. You may have to kind of find a good angle for that to work. It is pretty tight here. And there's the other. Now pretty easy, you're going to see these are identical. The other side is going to plug into this. So it's simply just making a jumper connection. So this will plug into here, lock that into place, and then this is going to go into our tail light. Now, as far as this wire goes, we are going to have to make a little slit on the grommet in order for this to sit in there. So I'm going to go ahead with a pair of snips and make a little slit here so we can run our wire through it. Now be careful here as to not obviously cut wires. So let's just make a slit here. Now don't go all the way through. You're going to want it to still at least maintain its shape like this. And what we'll do is simply put our wire in, and then now we can actually put our grommet back in place. And then we're going to go back with a little black silicone and make sure that this maintains its watertight seal. So to get these in, just kind of work your edge around first and then just slowly make your way. It might take a little bit of working this to get it to seat right, but it should go back in place. So now with the black silicone, we're going to go back here and just kind of put it over where that slit is. And again, this is just going to kind of make sure that it still has that watertight seal. And where that wire goes through, feel free to go a little bit heavy, as that is an entry point. And then we'll go ahead and let that dry. Now I'm going to repeat the same process on the driver's side with our multicolor wires here. The white wire, you can actually peel back if you find it easier to mount a ground inside. I prefer it that way, so just peel that back slightly. You don't have to go too far, and then we'll feed these through where our grommet hole was. So the same thing over here. I actually trimmed off just a little hole here because there is more wire obviously to feed through there, but now that it's routed through, we'll go ahead and fill this up with silicone. So now we have that all siliconed up. We'll go ahead and let that dry as well. And while our silicone's drying, we can go ahead and make our connection here. And then we're actually going to go into the inside and get the rest of it mounted up. So now with our ground wire, we have the ring terminal here. You're going to see it does have a flat spot, and that's where it's actually going to attach to the frame via a self-tapping screw. Now these can get a little tricky sometimes. They should make their own hole, but working in here, I don't want to drop the screw, so I'm going to make a little pilot hole, and really anywhere in here should be fine. It seems hollow, so making sure that we obviously don't drill into something is important, but as long as we have contact with the chassis, we should be good. Now we can go ahead with our self-tapping screw and our ground. We can go ahead and attach this in. Now with your self-tappers, you don't have to get too crazy. Mainly you're just making sure that the ring terminal isn't able to move around. So I'll just tighten this up just a little bit more and then we'll be good. So now we only have 2 more attachments to make, and that's going to be really just mounting this box back here. But before we do that, I'm going to attach to our power. So we have this fuse holder already attached. Make sure you do not have a fuse in here before attaching to the power. Now to get to the battery, sitting right here, you can push this tab up on both sides and this cover should come out just like that. And that's going to bring us to our positive here. So I'm going to go ahead and get a 13 millimeter, loosen that up. So now there is a protective box here, and since our power cable is twist tied up, I'm going to loosen that up, and there is a hole here that we can actually route it in. That way we don't have to cut any of the plastic. Feed this through here. And then our ring terminal is going to sit here. Now you can see this raised plastic that might get in the way a little bit, so if I can feed my fuse holder in, it's going to gain us a little bit more room to work with. Now this can sit there. Go ahead and tighten up that 13 millimeter. Now at this point, we can actually put our fuse in place here. So go ahead and pull this open. Take the supplied 10 amp fuse, put that in place, and cap it up. Now we're going to take our module here, and it does have a flat side. We'll go ahead, put the supplied double stick tape here, and this can kind of just go on any flat surface. This should hold it in place. If you want, you can actually put zip ties to make sure that it's not moving around, but this should hold it no problem. So I'm just going to kind of put it right here. There's a little bit of a hump where the taillight sits. And I'm going to face it down with our 4 poles kind of aiming that way. But right. That seems good. So now I'm going to make sure that it's actually working properly. And that way we know that all our wiring is done. And then we can go back and clean all this up. But first, let's make sure it's working. Now we're going to be testing our 4-pole and our wiring harness with this tester here. Now these are available at etrailer, and this is really nice because you don't actually have to hook it up to a trailer to make sure that it's working. And also it keeps it specific to the vehicle. And that way, if you have any wiring issues on your trailer, it's not going to give you a false positive saying that it's bad. This is just for this wiring harness. So now I'm going to run through the cycles, make sure they all work, and then we'll know we're good. So now I'm going to run through the light cycle to make sure they're working, starting with our running lights. Next, I'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. So I've gone ahead and just zip tied this kind of in this spot here, and that way that scuff panel is going to hold it in place. You're not going to have any loose wires. And also I kind of zip this down here, and that way it's also not going to have any contact with the stuff that when we put it back in. Now as far as our 4-pole goes, we're going to be able to just kind of bundle this up in our storage compartment, and then whenever we need to use it, we can simply let it out and close the hatch on it. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this put back together, and that should finish up our wiring. So now with everything back in place, you can see we have our wire, and you can really just tuck this up and put it underneath your floor mat if you'd like to, and that way whenever you need to, you'll have this accessible. You just simply pull it out. But for now, we're going to have it live in here. Very crucial step, obviously make sure that you get your taillights reinstalled. And that was a look and installation of the Curt trailer wiring harness on a 2018 Chevrolet Volt.